The dust line. The morning sun did not caress Arjun's eyes. It pierced through the thick veil of dust motes that hung suspended over his fields. His gaze was fixed on the parched, lifeless earth that was once the pride of his family, a land the village lovingly called green gold. Now, it was little more than a dust line, a frontier where hope came to die. Arjun was barely 30, yet the lines etched across his forehead told tales of decades of struggle. A faded, torn scarf draped over his shoulder was repeatedly used to wipe sweat from his neck, but it often carried more grit than moisture. This year, too, the same story, he muttered to himself. The last 5 years had been a relentless curse. The weather had turned erratic, either untimely drought or sudden, devastating floods. Arjun's father had taught him to treat the land as a mother, but the mother was desperately ill. The cruelest blow had come last year when an unidentified fungal blight had wiped out his entire wheat crop, leaving him with no readily available solution and burying him under a mountain of debt he couldn't afford to pay. His small, 2-acre plot, which should have sustained his wife, Maya, and their young son, Rohan, was now their biggest liability. The weight of that liability pressed down on him, not just financially, but emotionally. He was the 4th generation to till this soil, and the thought of being the last one, the one who failed, was a shame that burned deeper than the midday sun. The shadow of Verma. The clatter of a heavy, black SUV, utterly out of place on the dusty, winding village road, announced the arrival of the local powerhouse, Mr. J. Dev Verma. Verma was a man built on aggressive ambition and the misfortune of others. He was a successful land aggregator and, unofficially, the local agent for a massive, impersonal seed and fertilizer corporation. Verma stepped out, his pristine white kurta and polished shoes an intentional insult to the struggling farmers around him. He didn't walk on the soil, he seemed to glide above it. Arjun, Verma's voice boomed, laced with false sympathy that didn't hide the underlying threat. Still staring at the dirt? It won't sprout hope just because you wish it so, young man. Arjun turned slowly, his hands clenched. Mr. Verma, this is my land. You have no business here. TSK. Business, Arjun, is exactly why I'm here. Verma chuckled, pulling a thick envelope from his pocket. The interest on your loan from the local bank is compounding. Plus, my small personal loan to you, it's time to settle up. The total is quite substantial. Verma deliberately unfolded a complex legal document. I'm offering you a clean way out. Sign this deed of sale. 2 acres. You clear your debts. You keep your honor. You can go work in the city. Arjun's breath hitched. Leaving the land was akin to cutting off his own limb. No, I won't sign. I will have a harvest this year. I will pay you back. Verma's eyes narrowed, the false sympathy vanishing. Fool. Your traditional wisdom is bankrupt. Look around. The fields are dying because they need advanced, expensive seeds and fertilizers, my corporation's products. You can't afford them, and you don't have the sense to use them even if you did. This plot is failing. Don't drag your family down with your pride. The offer expires tomorrow. Think about it. With a final, dismissive sweep of his hand, Verma re-entered his SUV, leaving Arjun choking on the dust kicked up by the departing tires. The air felt heavy, and the silence that followed was louder than any threat. Arjun knew this was his last stand. If this next planting failed, the signature on that deed would be the only thing left. The USDA lifeline. Later that evening, in the warm glow of a flickering kerosene lamp, Arjun sat hunched over a pile of seed packets, their labels promising prosperity they had never delivered. Maya sat beside him, gently braiding Rohan's hair. We have enough for 2 acres, Arjun, Maya said softly, her voice attempting to sound optimistic. We will pray. We will work harder. Prayers won't stop the blight, Maya, Arjun sighed, running a weary hand through his hair. I've used the best we could afford. This seed is weak. It's too vulnerable. Just as despair began to settle in, a small, worn pamphlet that had arrived with a government circular slipped from the table. It bore the unfamiliar, yet official-looking, seal of the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, under the heading Rural Resilience Initiative. The text, mostly in English and detailed in scientific jargon, spoke of a collaborative program with local agricultural universities and the USDA's Agricultural Research Service, ARS. It was a pilot project looking for small-scale farmers willing to test genetically optimized, climate-resilient cultivars, seeds specially engineered to withstand local threats like drought and blight. One specific project caught his eye, highlighted with a small photo of a vigorous, healthy wheat stalk under intense scrutiny in a lab. Project ARS-42B, Asha, a fast-maturing, highly blight-resistant wheat cultivar. Selected farmers will receive free seed, technical support from a lead scientist, and guaranteed purchase of the first harvest. The word blight-resistant was like a whisper of rain in the desert. "Maya, look at this," Arjun said, his voice trembling slightly. "A scientist. A seed that can fight. It's a chance, Maya. Maybe the last one." The pamphlet listed a contact, Dr. Evelyn Reed, ARS Field Operations. The nearest center was an hour's drive away, but the distance suddenly felt insignificant. This was not the bank, not a corporation, but a department whose mission, the pamphlet claimed, was to serve the farmer. "We have nothing to lose, Arjun," Maya said, her hand resting firmly on his shoulder. "If this land must go, let it go with the knowledge that you fought with everything, even with American science." Arjun looked at the pamphlet again. A seed. It seemed so small, so insignificant, yet the promise it held was immeasurable. It was a potential volume of hope hidden in a single, dry kernel. He decided then and there. He would not plant the old, weak seed this time. He would drive to the city tomorrow, face the bureaucracy, and beg for that chance. He would put his entire remaining faith, and his family's future, into the hands of a scientist and one small, revolutionary seed. The next morning would determine whether the dust line would be breached, or whether his family's legacy would finally crumble. The concrete oasis. The USDA Extension Office was an air-conditioned anomaly in the sweltering, bustling city center. It was a concrete oasis, gleaming with modernity, fluorescent lights, and the unmistakable scent of processed wood and sterile paperwork. Arjun, dressed in his dusty village clothes, felt acutely out of place. He clutched the crumpled pamphlet in his hand like a talisman. He was directed to the Rural Resilience Initiative desk, where he was met not by a scientist, but by a weary-looking clerk buried under stacks of forms. "Project 42 billion Argentine pesos. Asha?" the clerk repeated, not looking up. "That's the high-level pilot project. Are you sure you're the right candidate? This requires technical compliance and documentation." Arjun explained his situation, detailing the devastating blight and the looming deadline set by Mr. Verma. He spoke not just of his financial need, but of the generational pride invested in his 2 acres. The clerk, however, only saw red tape. "Sir, you need land survey proof, notarized debt statements, and an irrigation plan approved by 3 different levels of local governance. We deal in research, not charity," the clerk insisted. "Besides, Dr. Reed is a very busy woman. She doesn't meet farmers directly." Defeated, Arjun began to turn away, his last sliver of hope dissolving. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" The voice was crisp, authoritative, and perfectly American accented. Arjun turned to see a woman in a lab coat, late 20s, with bright, intelligent eyes framed by sharp glasses. This had to be the catalyst. Dr. Reed's scrutiny. This was Dr. Evelyn Reed. Her appearance belied her reputation. She looked too young, too vibrant, too focused for the dusty, grueling work of agricultural science. She carried a sleek tablet instead of a clipboard and radiated an energy that seemed to measure things in molecules and data points, not sunrises and sweat. "I am Dr. Reed. What's the name?" she asked Arjun, her gaze analytical. "Arjun. From the village of Haripur. I came for the Asha seed program," he managed, holding out the worn pamphlet. Dr. Reed took the pamphlet, her brow furrowing slightly as she scanned the highlighted section. She waved the clerk away and gestured Arjun toward a small, private conference room. "Mr. Arjun, sit down," she commanded gently. Let me be clear. I am not a loan officer. I am a scientist. This seed, Asha, is the result of 7 years of intense USDA research. It's designed for extreme resilience, specifically the fungal blight that is ravaging this region. But it comes with a strict protocol. You are a test subject, and your field is a laboratory. She explained the risk. The Asha seeds were experimental. If they failed, they would fail completely, and Arjun would lose his last chance. But if they succeeded, the data gathered would save thousands of acres across the country. Your field is small, exactly 2 acres, which makes it perfect for controlled testing, Dr. Reed stated, pulling up a satellite image of his land on her tablet. But I need one thing from you that no government form can measure: trust in the science. You cannot use your old fertilizers. You cannot use traditional techniques on this patch. You must follow my instructions, precisely. Arjun's heart hammered against his ribs. It meant abandoning everything his father had taught him. But staring at the satellite image of his dying field, he realized the traditional methods had already failed. My father taught me that a seed speaks only when it is treated well. But my seeds have stopped speaking, Arjun said, his voice raw with conviction. I will follow your science. I only ask that this seed speaks loud enough to save my land. Dr. Reed paused, a flicker of professional curiosity softening into something human. Very well, Arjun. You have earned your trial. You will receive 20 kilograms of the Asha seed tomorrow morning. And I will be there to supervise the planting. Consider your field the most important 2 acres in the country. The planting of hope. The next morning, the air was thick with tension. A small, reinforced metallic box, bearing the official USDA seal, arrived at Arjun's field. Inside lay the seeds. They looked unremarkable, a little smaller, a little darker, but they were the literal manifestation of his final hope. Dr. Reed arrived shortly after, accompanied by a small team, including a serious-looking USDA technician carrying complex soil analysis equipment. Their presence instantly drew the attention of the village elders, who gathered on the edge of the field, whispering amongst themselves. Look at him. Using foreign seed, muttered one elder. Will the new gods of America help him more than our old ways? The situation grew volatile when Mr. Verma arrived. He stood beside the elders, leaning against his black SUV, an insolent smile playing on his lips. Dr. Reed, I presume, Verma called out smoothly, approaching the test plot. J-Dev Verma. I own most of the surrounding land. I must warn you, Doctor. This man, Arjun, is volatile and desperate. Your science is too good for him. He will fail, and my corporation's established products will prevail. Dr. Reed didn't flinch. She placed her hands firmly on the metallic seed box. Mr. Verma, I work for the farmers and the security of the nation's food supply. We are here to prove that resilience is possible, even in the smallest fields. If this seed speaks, Mr. Verma, it will speak not only to Arjun but to your entire market. She handed Arjun a small packet of the seeds. The protocol starts now, Arjun. Shallow planting, precise spacing. We need maximum light absorption. And absolutely no chemical treatments for the first month. Arjun took the seeds. They felt impossibly light, yet heavy with the weight of the USDA's research and his family's future. Ignoring Verma's mocking gaze and the villagers' skepticism, he bent down, cupped the handful of seeds, and began the delicate process of sowing. As the sun climbed higher, Arjun worked with a renewed sense of purpose, his movements dictated by Dr. Reed's precise measurements. He wasn't just scattering seeds. He was planting a challenge to the drought, the blight, and the crushing power of men like Verma. He was planting the Asha seed, a small kernel of science that held the potential to utter volumes. The first green whisper. The Asha seeds, those tiny, dark kernels of government science and personal hope, lay dormant for 3 agonizing days. Arjun would visit the field early every morning, his heart a hammer against his ribs, searching for any sign of life. On the 4th day, under the harsh glare of the sun, he saw it. A solitary, tender green shoot pushing through the cracked, hard soil of the test plot. Soon, 1,000 such whispers followed. What truly spoke volumes immediately was not just the speed of germination, but the color and vigor of the seedlings. Arjun's control plot, where he had grudgingly planted a small row of his old seeds, was struggling. Those shoots were pale, thin, and brittle. But the Asha seedlings were a deep, almost unnatural emerald green, their stems thick and robust. They were rooted deeply, defying the parched topsoil that had already claimed so much of his land. Dr. Reed arrived the next day, not in the formal USDA SUV, but in a dusty rental car. She carried her equipment and a focused concentration that was infectious. "Look at the hypercotyls, Arjun," she pointed out, adjusting her glasses. "They are stronger. We engineered them for rapid root deployment. This is the seed's first sentence, I will survive." Arjun was mesmerized. He had spent his life reading the language of the soil, but this was a new, powerful dialect. He realized the vast difference between traditional farming, which relied on the soil being forgiving, and scientific resilience, which engineered the seed to resist the soil's cruelty. He meticulously followed Dr. Reed's instructions, keeping the irrigation precise and resisting the urge to add any local manure or chemical fertilizer. The village elders, led by Arjun's skeptical uncle, often came by. They would shake their heads, convinced that Arjun was ruining the crop by planting too sparsely and not using enough to cat strength, i.e., fertilizer. They believed the strong color was a trick, a temporary illusion of health. Verma's shadow and the unseasonal storm. As the Asha plants reached the crucial stage of tillering, when a single plant sends up multiple shoots, they began to draw too much attention. The plot looked like a healthy, thriving square cut into a landscape of yellowing, stressed fields. Mr. Verma saw this success not as hope, but as a direct threat to his corporate monopoly. One evening, Arjun discovered a small, disturbing patch on the edge of the Asha plot. A clear line of chemical burn. Someone had deliberately sprayed a corrosive agent onto the plants closest to the road. The vibrant green leaves were shriveled and brown. Rage, cold and immediate, filled Arjun. He knew instinctively it was Verma's doing, a crude attempt to discredit the experiment and ensure Arjun defaulted on his loan. He immediately called Dr. Reed, who arrived within the hour with her technician. She didn't panic. She observed and measured. "This is vandalism, Arjun. Intentional poisoning," she confirmed, taking samples of the soil and the dying plants. "But here's the test of our science. Asha is not just blight resistant. It has been bred for high recovery rates from environmental stress." Dr. Reed instructed Arjun to flood that specific damaged area slightly and use a custom microbial wash that she brought from the lab. It was a tedious, minute operation, requiring him to treat each damaged plant individually. Arjun worked through the night, driven by the desire to protect the seed that was protecting him. The real test came 3 days later. An unseasonal, sudden hailstorm ripped through the region. It was short but brutal, flattening many of the local crops. Arjun watched, helpless, as the hail pounded his precious 2 acres. When the storm passed, he rushed to the field, dreading the sight of shattered stalks. The control plot of his old seeds was decimated. Broken stems and ripped leaves lay scattered. But when he reached the Asha plot, his breath caught. Though battered and bruised, the Asha plants, with their thick, strong stems, were bent over but not broken. Within hours of the storm, they slowly began to spring back, their internal structures designed to flex rather than snap. A partnership of faith and data. The resilience after the hailstorm was the first real volume the seed spoke. "I am stronger than the elements." Even Mr. Verma's sabotage was contained. The deep-rooted Asha plants recovered faster than expected, containing the chemical burn to a small, isolated area. Dr. Reed, seeing the field, allowed a rare, wide smile. "The data is undeniable, Arjun. The phenotypic expression of resilience is exactly as predicted in the lab. This isn't just surviving, it's thriving in failure conditions." The incident transformed their relationship. It moved from a strict scientist-subject dynamic to a partnership of shared purpose. Arjun started asking complex questions about gene expression and nutrient uptake. Dr. Reed, in turn, began to appreciate Arjun's inherited wisdom about soil moisture and local wind patterns. Dr. Reed, Arjun asked one evening, "Why does the government spend so much time on one small farmer?" She paused, looking out at the green field that was steadily growing taller. The USDA is often seen as a bureaucratic monster, Arjun. But its real heart is in the Agricultural Research Service and the extension offices. We are here to ensure food security, and that starts not with huge corporations, but with a resilient 2-acre plot. This seed speaks not just volumes of science, but volumes about equity, the belief that the smallest farmer deserves the best technology. The Asha seeds were now mid-stalk. Their leaves were broad, collecting sunlight efficiently, and the promise of the heads of grain, the actual harvest, was becoming visible. The whole village was watching now, their skepticism slowly turning into curiosity, and for some, envy. The 2 acres of Arjun's farm were now not just an experiment. They were a glowing beacon of unshakable green hope in a dying landscape. The seeds had successfully overcome the dry soil, the initial blight spores, the malicious chemical burn, and the brute force of the hail. But the final, most crucial test, the blight season, was yet to arrive. The true volume of the Asha seed remained to be seen. A golden tide. The air in Arjun's field was no longer thick with the scent of decay, but sweet with the aroma of ripe wheat. The Asha plants stood tall, their heads heavy and golden, shimmering under the morning sun. Each stalk was robust, each grain plump, a testament to resilience, a symbol of defiance. The blight season had come and gone, leaving a trail of devastation everywhere but here, on these 2 acres. Dr. Reed and her team, now visibly relaxed, moved through the field, their scientific instruments replaced by cameras. They were not just collecting data anymore, they were documenting a triumph. Every grain was a data point, every healthy stalk a confirmation of years of painstaking research. The success of Project 42 billion Argentine pesos was no longer theoretical. It was tangible, abundant, and undeniably real. The USDA had promised a guaranteed purchase of the first harvest, and they honored it with efficiency. A specialized harvesting crew arrived, complete with modern machinery, a sight rarely seen in the small, struggling village. As the combine threshed the grain, filling sack after sack with golden kernels, the numbers began to speak their own volume. Arjun's yield was not just good, it was phenomenal, far exceeding the average for a healthy season, and astronomically higher than the blighted crops around him. The sacks piled up, creating a small, gleaming mountain of prosperity. Maya and Rohan watched with tears in their eyes. For Maya, it was the relief of escaping debt and poverty. For Rohan, it was the awe of witnessing his father, once stoic and burdened, now standing tall, his face radiating quiet pride. The village gathered, no longer to whisper skepticism, but to gawk in open amazement. The elders, who had once mocked Arjun, now approached with hesitant admiration. "Your foreign seed, it has indeed spoken loudly, Arjun," his uncle admitted, his voice softened by awe. "It has shamed our old ways, but also given us new hope." The price of triumph. The news of Arjun's miraculous harvest, backed by USDA's official verification, spread like wildfire through the region. It wasn't just a local success, it was a national story, highlighting the potential of genetic engineering in saving small farmers. Dr. Reed was being hailed for her breakthrough, and the Asha seed became a beacon for future agricultural initiatives. But every triumph casts a shadow. For Mr. Jaydev Verma, Arjun's success was a catastrophic failure. His corporate-backed fungicides had proven useless against the blight, and his aggressive land-grabbing tactics were now exposed as predatory. The farmers who had bought his products were furious, demanding refunds and openly questioning his advice. Verma tried to maintain his composure, to dismiss Arjun's success as a fluke, a single lucky patch. But the sheer volume of Arjun's harvest, meticulously documented by the USDA, was undeniable. He saw his empire, built on the despair of farmers, begin to crumble. One afternoon, a visibly agitated Verma stormed into Arjun's courtyard. His usual arrogant swagger was replaced by a desperate, almost pleading tone, though his eyes still held a glint of menace. "Arjun, this This is unacceptable. You used experimental seeds. You cheated. Your yield will destabilize the market, Verma blustered, trying to find fault where there was none. I demand you share your profits. Think of your position in the village. Arjun, no longer the intimidated farmer, stood firm. Mr. Verma, this is not cheating. This is science. This is hard work. This is the USDA's answer to your outdated, expensive products that failed my people. You wanted my land when it was dying. You mocked my seed when it was growing. Now that it has harvested, you want to share. Maya stepped forward, her voice surprisingly strong. You offered us a deed, Mr. Verma. We didn't sign. Now, you have no business here. Verma's face contorted in fury. He knew he was beaten. The offer to buy Arjun's land was long gone. The debt he held was now insignificant against Arjun's earnings. He had underestimated the power of a desperate man armed with hope and cutting-edge science. The seed's lasting echo. With the USDA's guaranteed purchase, Arjun not only paid off all his debts, to the bank and to Verma, who grudgingly accepted the payment, but he also had a significant surplus. It was more money than his family had seen in generations. He immediately invested in repairing his home, buying new tools, and ensuring Rohan's education. But the most profound impact wasn't just financial. Arjun's success ignited a spark across the valley. Other farmers, seeing the incontrovertible proof on his field, began approaching the USDA Extension Office, eager to learn about the Asha seed program. Dr. Reed's project, once a small pilot, was now set to expand exponentially, driven by grassroots demand. The Asha seed had indeed spoken volumes. It spoke of resilience, how science could empower nature to fight back against seemingly insurmountable odds. Hope, how a single innovation could lift a family, a village, and potentially an entire agricultural sector out of despair. Equity, how a government department, often seen as distant bureaucracy, could directly empower the most vulnerable farmers, evening the playing field against powerful corporations. Arjun, once a man burdened by the weight of inherited failure, had become a quiet hero, a living testament to the power of progress. His field, once a dust line of despair, was now a vibrant, perennial promise. He wasn't just a farmer anymore. He was a pioneer, a guardian of a new future where the land and its caretakers could thrive, even in the face of ever-changing challenges. The seed had spoken, and its echoes would resonate far beyond Arjun's 2 acres, changing the narrative of agriculture for generations to come. The blight had been defeated, not by brute force, but by the quiet, eloquent strength of a single, well-chosen seed. The model farmer. Following the landmark harvest, Arjun's 2 acres transformed into a living monument to the success of the USDA's applied science. He was no longer just a struggling farmer. He was a local icon, the face of the Rural Resilience Initiative. The USDA leveraged his success heavily. His farm became a demonstration plot, hosting field days for farmers from all corners of the state. Arjun, initially shy and hesitant, found his voice. Standing beside Dr. Reed, he explained his journey, not just detailing the technical aspects of the Asha seed's performance, but speaking passionately about the leap of faith he took, abandoning tradition for data and doubt for hope. He became the crucial link between the sterile science of the lab and the rugged reality of the field. The seed spoke to me, Arjun would often tell the visiting groups, holding a handful of the golden kernels. It didn't speak the language of chemicals or money. It spoke the language of survival and truth. It told me that if science is honest, it belongs to the soil and to the man who tills it. The immediate impact on the village was profound. The elders, who had once feared the foreign seed, now lined up to enroll in the program. They saw the prosperity and the security that Arjun now enjoyed, and the fear of debt and blight finally gave way to the optimism of progress. The village economy, stagnant for years, began to buzz with activity as farmers anticipated successful harvests. This was exactly the volume the USDA wanted the seed to speak. A decentralized, grassroots revolution in agriculture, proving that high-tech solutions could be implemented by smallholders with modest resources, provided the support and the technology were freely available. Dr. Reed's triumph and challenge. Dr. Evelyn Reed's success with the Asha seed catapulted her career. The data gathered from Arjun's plot, meticulously detailing its resistance to blight, high yield under stress, and low input requirement, provided the conclusive evidence needed to scale up the program. The USDA announced a massive, multi-state rollout of the Asha cultivar, prioritizing small, indebted farmers. However, Dr. Reed's triumph also brought political and corporate scrutiny. The success of a publicly funded, free-access seed directly threatened the business model of massive seed and chemical corporations, the very entities Mr. Verma represented. Verma, though professionally ruined in the local market, had powerful connections. A smear campaign began, attempting to discredit the Asha seed. Articles appeared in regional papers questioning the genetic stability of the new cultivar, suggesting it was untested and dangerous, and subtly implying that government scientists were tampering with nature. One day, while Dr. Reed was reviewing expansion plans at the local extension office, a high-ranking official from a rival corporation, an associate of Verma's, visited her. "Dr. Reed," the official purred, "your success is remarkable. Why give this billion-dollar research away? Let us license Asha. We will handle distribution and ensure quality control, and you and your department will receive hefty royalties. This is the American way." Dr. Reed stood her ground. The Asha seed was developed using taxpayer money under the mandate of the U.S. Department of Agriculture to ensure food security and rural stability, not corporate profit. The seed will remain open source and free to the farmers who need it most. That is the USDA way. She understood that the battle was no longer just about the blight. It was about access and equity, ensuring that the technological volume spoken by the seed was heard by everyone, not just those who could afford the price of admission. Beyond the 2 acres, Arjun's family life had also blossomed. Maya, once burdened by worry, now managed the farm's finances with confidence, using the surplus funds to start a small, supplementary poultry business. Rohan was enrolled in a better school, his future secure. But Arjun knew his responsibility extended beyond his own family. He began working unofficially with the USDA Extension, helping new farmers understand and implement the strict protocol required for the Asha seed. He translated the scientific jargon into the practical, common-sense language of the soil. He helped set up a farmer cooperative in the village, ensuring that local farmers could pool their resources, share information about the Asha seed's performance, and prevent predatory middlemen from exploiting their successful harvests. This cooperative became a bulwark against the remaining influence of Verma's old network. One evening, Dr. Reed was leaving after inspecting a new training center that Arjun had helped establish. She stopped, looking at Arjun, who was teaching a group of farmers how to check for early signs of blight using a simple magnifying glass. "Arjun," she said, "you've done more than prove my science. You've proven the very mission of the department. You've shown that the greatest volume a seed can speak is the sound of a community finding its strength again." Arjun smiled, looking not at the vibrant green of his field, but at the faces of his neighbors, now filled with hope and purpose. When the seed spoke, it told us we are not alone. It told us the government is not just forms and rules, but a hand reaching out in the dark. The story of the Asha seed, born in a USDA lab, proven in a desperate farmer's field, was now truly complete. It was a story of a small kernel that didn't just yield grain, but yielded trust, prosperity, and a renewed faith in the partnership between science and the soil. The roots of change were spreading, deep and strong, across the countryside. The new soil of partnership. 2 years had passed since the first magnificent harvest of the Asha seed. The landscape of the valley was dramatically transformed. Where once the fields were a patchwork of dying yellow and brown, now lay a contiguous sea of healthy, vibrant green. The debt cycle had been broken for dozens of families, and the local market buzzed with newfound wealth and stability. This success was the living, breathing legacy of the USDA's scientific investment. Arjun was now an integral, if unofficial, part of the USDA extension team. His role had grown from a test farmer to a master trainer. He ran field workshops, helping farmers adopt the rigorous, data-driven protocols that Dr. Reed had established. He had integrated his ancestral knowledge, the deep understanding of local microclimates and soil temperament, with Dr. Reed's science of genetics and plant pathology. Their partnership was a beautiful synergy. Arjun provided the crucial ground truth, confirming where the seed worked best and where the protocols needed subtle local adjustments. Dr. Reed, in turn, provided access to the next generation of resilient cultivars that the USDA was developing, ensuring the farmers were always one step ahead of the evolving threats of climate change and new pests. The soil is like the government, Dr. Reed, Arjun once remarked while testing a new hybrid variety. If you only take from it, it eventually fails. But if you nourish it with good research and trust, it gives back far more than you put in. Dr. Reed, who now visited the field less frequently due to her expanded responsibilities at the national level, cherished these field trips. They were a reminder of why she chose public science over lucrative corporate research. Her success was measured not in patents or quarterly reports, but in the stable, smiling face of Arjun and the thriving green fields around him. The corporate counterattack. While the local chapter of Mr. Verma's influence had been dismantled, the corporate power he represented remained massive. The success of the free-access Asha seed was causing multi-million-dollar losses for the global seed giants, who relied on selling expensive, patented hybrid seeds and accompanying chemical packages. The counterattack was sophisticated and far-reaching. They couldn't prove the Asha seed was unstable, so they attacked the policy. Lobbyists pressed hard on Congress, arguing that the USDA's role should be limited to basic research only, and that distributing specialized cultivars like Asha for free was unfair market interference and a waste of taxpayer money. They proposed drastic budget cuts to the Agricultural Research Service, ARS, and the entire extension program. One afternoon, Dr. Reed received a chilling internal memo. The Rural Resilience Initiative, the very program that funded the Asha seed, was on the chopping block. If the budget passed with these cuts, the program would dissolve, and the crucial support, including follow-up research and new seed supplies, would vanish. This was the ultimate victory for Verma's cronies. If they couldn't beat the seed in the field, they would kill its roots in the capital. She immediately called Arjun. They are trying to silence the volume, Arjun. Not the seed itself, but the echo. They are trying to prove that the government cannot effectively help the small farmer. Arjun's response was immediate and focused. They may have money and connections in the city, Dr. Reed, but we have proof in the soil. And we have the voices of the farmers they tried to bankrupt. The seed speaks in Washington. The final act of the story took place not in the fertile fields, but in the unforgiving halls of Washington, D.C. Dr. Reed, facing a skeptical congressional subcommittee debating the budget cuts, new raw data wasn't enough. They needed the human face of the success. Arjun, along with Maya, traveled to the capital. Dressed in his finest, yet simple, farmer's attire, Arjun stood before the subcommittee, his presence a stark contrast to the suits and polished wood. He didn't read from a prepared statement. He simply spoke about the 2 acres. He spoke of the dust line and the shame of impending failure. He spoke of the small, dark Asha kernel and the leap of faith he took with Dr. Reed. The seed that was given to me, Arjun testified, his voice clear and resonant, was not just food, it was dignity. It spoke to us when the banks were silent and the market was cruel. It spoke with profit that cleared my debt, and it spoke with hope that secured my son's future. He pointed to the satellite images that Dr. Reed projected, before, a dying brown patch, and after, a thriving green oasis, and then he pointed to Maya, who stood beside him. This program is not a charity. It is an investment in survival. Cut this budget, and you are not saving money. You are guaranteeing that the blight, the drought, and the corporate giants will return to steal our land. The seed spoke for us in the field. I am here to make sure its volume is heard here, in the heart of the country. His testimony, raw and emotional, backed by Dr. Reed's irrefutable scientific data, resonated deeply. The committee could not ignore the evidence of a successful, community-driven initiative. The votes shifted. The drastic budget cuts to the ARS and the extension program were halted, and the Rural Resilience Initiative was not only saved but was given the mandate for further expansion. The legacy of the Asha seed was thus cemented. It proved that scientific research, when married to direct farmer engagement and public service, could overcome both the natural forces of destruction and the corporate forces of exploitation. The seed had not only yielded a superior harvest, it had grown into a national policy of empowerment.